Hi everyone, welcome to the basic network troubleshooting testing with Iometer. We're going to be going through a few setups. We're first going to be setting up a perf meter instance to get a better look at what Iometer is actually doing on the network interface itself. Then we're going to be setting up some basic network workers in Iometer, a Dynamo worker, and we're going to be setting up an access specification to deal specifically with the networking component of it. Then we're going to run the actual test and get our results. So the first thing we need to do is we need to start run MMC. We're going to use MMC with the snap-in to add the actual perf meter, because going through the normal performance monitoring tool in the control panel, for some reason it just doesn't, Windows 7 doesn't let you save it off. So we're going to use this technique, which will allow you to save a shortcut icon for future reference purposes, which I find extremely handy. Perf meter is great for doing any kind of focused troubleshooting and getting some real-time dynamic feedback in the process. So we'll go to File here. Let's see, Add, Remove, Snap-in. We'll find Performance Monitor, Add. Okay. I'm going to clean up some of this periphery here, make it look good. Expand it out. There's our performance monitor. Now we can get rid of that window pane here on the left. Get rid of the one on the right. Shrink it down. Alright. Now let's clean up the look of this just to make it easier to read. Go right click on the background, go to Properties, Graph. We're going to add in the horizontal grid. For the vertical scale, we're going to change this to 200, because we're going to be working with a gig connection. So, and this is going to be in megabytes. So the maximum megabytes you can get with a gig connection is approximately 124, 125 theoretically. So 200 should cover our scale, our vertical scale anyway. Okay, go to the Appearance tab. I like setting my background to a nice drabby gray here. Alright. There we go, and that's our basic look on our perf meter graph. So let's go add some counter objects. Click on the plus. They're going to populate here. Let's go find our network object. There's our network interface. Expand that down. It auto selects them all, but you definitely don't want them all. It's just information overflow. So let's go in here and pick bytes received per second, bytes sent per second. Output queue length. That's a good one. And packets received per second, packets sent per second. Those are all good. Okay, so if you have multiple NICs, you're going to get two listed down here, and you may not know which one it is. This isn't exactly intuitive. So a little trick for figuring this out. Bring up a command prompt, either start, run, type CMD. Alright, now that we brought up a command prompt, we're going to go ahead and type IP config/all. That's going to give a listing of our interfaces. Now, you find your preferred interface, which should have the IP address of your system there. And you will also notice the name of that interface. And you can see there it's controller number 2. So now that we have that piece of information, we can go back to perf meter, select number 2, click add, and our counters are moved over for that particular interface. Back on the instances of the selected objects for our interfaces, you could say all interfaces, but it's gonna double up on the actual counters, because if we have two interfaces, it's going to add twice what you selected up here, and it's just, again, it's a jumble of data, so it kind of keeps it nice and clean if we just get specific. And we're just looking at exactly what we're seeing. That way there's no confusion. All right, hit OK. And this pulls it in. A lot of time it pulls it in, the scale isn't exactly accurate. So we're going to need to go in and adjust the scale. To do that, right click on the graph. Again, go to Properties. For the Data tab, good, that's already selected. Scroll over here to see what we're looking at here. Okay, we're going to adjust all of these, all 5 of these here. For the bytes received and sent, we want to put that as 6 decimal places to the left. So that is the 4th one down here. That'll give us a nice accurate in megabytes reference in the hundreds. Okay. Again, the same thing for here. 6 to the left. The 4th down. Let's see here. I like to send my bytes sent. I like that to be red. That's my particular preference. And received green. Kind of visually cue in on that. Okay, for the output length, we're going to do 2 to the right. Well, I guess that would be 1 to the right. Okay, packets received and sent. We're going to do 1 to the left. Or 2 to the left, actually. Just kidding. All right. Scale looks good. We're going to hit OK there. All right, now that we got our perf meter session all set up, let's go ahead and save that off. So to do that, we're just going to File, Save, and save it to wherever you want. We'll just call it network. Keep it simple. Okay, perf meter is good to go. Now we're going to move on to setting up iometer. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to start up iometer. And it should come in looking something like this. It may have spawned a couple of worker instances. If you have multiple disks, it may have more or less than this. But we're not interested in testing the disk speed or performance. So we're actually going to clean up these disk worker instances. We're actually going to be working with this network worker instance here. So let's detach these 2 disk workers. So go to the detach icon, remove, remove. All right, now before we do anything else, we have to create a manager on another host that we're going to be running the network test with. So access your remote host or go to your remote host. I have my remote session here. Pull up either a PowerShell window, I'm using PowerShell here, or a DOS window, and you have to have iometer installed on this instance of this host. Change to that iometer directory. Okay, there we go. And we're going to be running our dynamo.exe. A Dynamo process is a command line version of iometer. Basically, it's a manager that runs in the background, and it allows port communications for networking or disk process testing. It creates a slave process and basically allows the iometer application or GUI to control it and pass and receive as it generates data or receives data. So let's look at the help for that. So we're going to be using iometer computer name parameter and manager name. So we're going to be using the /i switch and the /m as in Mike switch. Okay, so the iometer computer is where you're running your GUI, which is back on my other host, and the manager is this system. I just use IP addresses to keep it simple. May be a little easier for you that way. Okay, so run dynamo/I. Okay, that's the iometer computer where you have the iometer running. Now for the manager, that's this host, so we're pointing it back to itself. And go ahead and hit enter, and you should see it start up a series of communications between the host where you have iometer and the host itself. And it's just kind of doing a quick check for physical drive, and it found one on host A, which is the remote host in this case. All right, so this looks good. So it's waiting for action from the iometer controlling client. So go ahead and minimize this. And as you can see, host A was brought in. So let's expand that out, and it picked up the worker disk as it did when we brought in our initial host. So we're going to clean this up because we're not doing any disk testing. So I'm going to detach that thread. Okay, good. All right. Now, what we'll do, and it doesn't, I guess, matter which host you start from, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll go ahead and start from our iometer controlling host, which is tank. We'll go over here to disk targets. Just notice that it's grayed out since we don't have any disk target workers going on. We'll move on to the network targets. That's also grayed out because we don't have any created. So on your tank host, go ahead and select that host or the host you're running iometer, and click on this icon here, Start New Network Worker, and it's going to create a network worker right here. There you go. So we'll click on that, worker 1 on tank. And notice under the targets, it gives us an option to select where we're going to be communicating to or from. Now, we can essentially loop back to ourselves by selecting tank, but we don't really do that. Since we want to do a network bandwidth test, we want to communicate with the remote host on the other end, which in this case is host A. So our target is from tank to host A. So we're going to select that, and notice when I do that, it creates a ghost worker 1 on host A in the topology screen window. And if you happen to have multiple network interface cards on host A, or actually, I should say on tank, you can actually select what host you want, what IP you want it to come from in this dropdown. But as we only have one, it just defaults to that, so that's not an issue. Something to be aware of. All right, so we got our network targets all configured. We're going to move on to our access specifications. What we want to do here is, what I normally do is I create a series of some send and receive specifications, just so you can independently test your send and receive. We're going to do a receive in this situation, so just for brevity. So we'll go ahead and click the new button here. Let's call it net receive. We'll start with 3K. Change this to 3K. Your sequential random aren't going to have an effect here. Percent specification, access spec isn't really going to affect it. What is important here is the write and read. Write is send, read is receive, network-wise. So we're doing a receive test. So we're going to move that to read 100%. All right. And everything else should be good. All right, we're going to click OK. And we'll go ahead and create another copy of this. Let's do one at 16K. All right, good. Create any copies, so everything else should be the same. And we're going to create one more copy, edit copy at 24K. And we'll save that off. Okay, good. So we have 3 new access specs created here. So let's add them to the assigned access specification side. Add, 16 add, and 24 add. Good. Okay, we're going to go up to the results display and set that up. I normally set my update frequency to 2 here. These are a few important things you want to take a look at. Total IOs. Since we're only doing receive and send, you want to change that from total to write. Actually, we're doing read. That way it's not going to double up on it, so it'll appear like you're getting twice the bandwidth. You don't want to do that, so adjust that accordingly. Actually, let's change this top one here to network packets per second. That one makes more sense. And then for the megabytes per second, we are going to do read megabytes per second. That will be much more accurate. All right, and here we'll let's see, we'll do packet errors, and here we'll do TCP segment retransmits. Just in case we do have some faulty media, you can kind of see that. That will be very apparent. Since this is a test, that'll be a good indicator of what's going on. So ideally, you want both of those to read 0, so you're not getting any errors on your media. If you are, well, problem solved, I guess. Replace the media. All right, and then you have your latencies, of course, so you can see your average and your maximum response time for network latency. So those shouldn't be particularly high at all. Otherwise, you could have some other equipment issues or potentially firewall issues if you're testing through a firewall. Okay, so this looks good. So now we're going to go to the test setup. And this is more for reporting purposes and runtime. We're just going to run our test for 15 seconds here. Ramp up time, you really don't need that with networking, but I'll throw 2 seconds in there. It's more of a disk setting. All right, record results. We don't want to record any results to a file, so I'm just going to say none here. And everything else should be okay. Normal is good for this scenario. All right, let's go ahead and run our test. Before we do that, I'm going to pull up the perf meter instance we created. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start this test. You can see the results from a previous test I'd done earlier. Go ahead and click the green flag to begin the test. And it does the 2-second countdown ramp up, and we're off and running. Now you can see we're on the first iteration of 3 iterations here. We're on the 3K. You can see it doing about 20. Perf meter seems to be a little bit more accurate than ohmmeter, but the numbers should be fairly close. So we're getting about 16 there. And we're ramping up for the second test run 2. And we're getting about 24 meg now. Now these numbers are subdued because I'm running this video screencasting software, so it's subduing my numbers quite a bit. Otherwise I'd peak out on a third range, but I won't. So we're into test 3 now, ramping up. And we're hitting about 44, 50 roughly. And you can kind of see the step process there and what's going on. And another handy little feature is to click the highlighter to kind of get and highlight the received. This is what we're looking at here. That kind of helps you visually cue in on things too when you got a lot of stuff going on in your perf meter, and the test is complete. And that's essentially how it works. It helps you kind of gauge your bandwidth, do some testing, check for errors using ohmmeter, get a general sense of what's going on. It's essentially a load generator for your network. You can do it with sending, you can do it with receiving. Just make sure to adjust your ohmmeter metrics, whether you're reading or you're writing. Set up your access specifications, and make sure it's appropriate in your results display. And it's a very flexible tool. You can do a lot of things with. You can do some really neat advanced things where you can pull in multiple hosts using the managers from the Dynamo process, and you can configure multiple workers to stream across their independent links into a single pipeline potentially, and you can test the bandwidth of that pipeline. Say they each have 1 gig each on the clients, and you have a 10 gig pipeline, and you want to know that you're getting that 10 gig, then you can configure your workers to perform such tests and either monitor with ohmmeter or whatever tool you prefer. But that's essentially how it works, and It's a great tool. I use it for a lot of stuff. It works great for network testing. I enjoy it even more for testing disks and drives. And I invite you to check out the article on itechstorm.com. And please feel free to leave comments, subscribe, click the links, and I'll look forward to producing the next video for you guys. Take care.